Jai Ho, my dear students. I am Ratnakar Suryamshi from SK Public School. In the last class, we have learnt about how the French society was structured, and even before that, in the first point or in the first concept of the French Revolution, that is the French society during the late 18th century. In this, we have learnt who was the king of France during the time of 1798. The king was, that 16th Louis, we have learnt, as well as what was his wife name, correct? No, Austrian princess Mary Antoinette, we have learnt. And even I told you that what he found, why he had found an empty treasury when he came to the rule. Even we have learned that why the government or why the administration decided to increase the tax. And I told you that who were required to pay tax. As I told you that French society was divided on estate basis, three estate base. Which are those three estates also we have studied. First estate is clergy, second estate is made of nobility, and third estate is made of big businessmen, merchants, court officials, lawyers, etc. Even peasants, artisans, small peasants, landless laborers, as well as servants. These were all the part of the third estate. Only the third estate members have to pay the tax. This social system was in France during the time of late 18th century or during the time of 1789. And see, out of this, we will see one more important point in the first concept only. So let's see about that concept also here now. See, that is peasants made in France. I am telling in France, peasants made up of 90% of the population. Out of 100% population, see, 90% population was made by peasants, Peasants were about 90% in terms of population out of 100%. And see, even though they are about 90% population, but very few peasants owned land. Very few peasants owned land that they cultivated, and 60% of the land was owned by nobles, church, and other richer members of the third estate. 60% of land was owned by church or by clergy, as well as by the nobles or by the rich members of the third estate society. All these people owned 60% of the land, even though there were 90% population was made of peasants, but 60% of land in France was owned by whom? By the clergy, including church, nobles, and the richer members of the third estate. And the member of clergy and nobility enjoyed some certain privileges by birth only. The members of first and second estate, I mean clergy and nobility, the members of clergy and nobility, they have owned or they enjoyed some privileges by birth. Privileges means benefits or facilities they enjoyed by birth, some. And even see that they were exempted from paying taxes. First and second estate members like clergy and nobility, they were exempted. I mean, they were not required to pay tax. They had benefit, they had privileges by birth also, but even though they were not required to pay tax. Who had to pay tax? You know that the members of third estate. And even see that the nobles enjoyed feudal privileges, like feudal dues were there, which they extracted from the peasants. Now, feudal privileges, see, feudalism emerged during the time of Middle Ages. I told you feudalism means what? Large area of land, cultivable area of land was owned by one person, one rich person or landlord. So obviously one person couldn't cultivate the large area of land. So that's why he gave that land, he divided the land, large area of land into pieces, and he gave those small pieces of cultivable land to the peasants on the basis of rent. Bardige we call. So those peasants, those who get the land on the basis of rent, they have to pay regular rent to the rich landlord. So, and even they have to work for some time freely for the rich landlord. So, all those are called as feudal dues. Even though the first estate, especially the nobility, they used to extract feudal dues from the peasants. And even see that peasants were obliged to render their service to the landlord or to their lord. Obviously, landlord we call, and that too to work in his house or in his farm freely, as well as to work in the army. They were allowed, to serve in the army as soldiers, as well as they had to work or they had to participate as building road constructions. See here, one more point, I'll repeat it. Peasants were obliged, they must provide their service to the rich landlord to work in his farm or in his house. This is one point. And second one, peasants must work in the army as soldiers, as well as they must participate in building roads. They must do this all. And the church, see here, this is about work and all. The church, now about taxes. Church also extracted, or church also used to extract tax called tiths from the peasants. See, this is a tiths, it is a tax. Tiths, it is a tax extracted by church from whom? From the peasants. Peasants have to give tax to the church, which is called as tiths. Church used to extract this tax from the peasants. That too, this tax is 1/10 of the agricultural produce. 1/10 of the agricultural produce was taken as a tax called tiths by the church from the peasants. And which means, here obviously we can come to know that only who had to pay tax? Only the members of third estate have to pay tax. And even see, there was another tax called tile. Tile also we call, or tile also we call. There was another tax called tile. And these were the direct taxes. Tiths and tile, these were the direct taxes. Tile was extracted by the government. Tile was extracted by the government of France, but tiths was extracted from the church. Tile was extracted from the government of France by the third estate members. These were the direct taxes. Even there were number of indirect taxes imposed on the third estate members on their necessity food consumption or on their necessity consumptions, like salt as well as like tobacco. On these also indirect taxes were imposed. These two were direct taxes, and there were indirect taxes imposed on the necessary consumptions, regular consumptions like salt and tobacco. On these also taxes were imposed. So this is all about the French society. And now we will take one more concept, that is the struggle to survive. The struggle to survive and the growing middle class envisages an end to privileges. These two important topics are remaining in the first concept, that is the French society during the late 18th century. We will study these in the next class. Thank you. Jai Hind.